Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Ixalan. That's Luis Scott Vargas. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Thanks for joining us. Let's get down the stretch here, Luis. We've got two semifinals and then a finals to cover here to finish off our Pro Tour Sunday. The first semifinal is coming at you. We've got Pascal Maynard, Team Massdrop West. He is playing blue-white God-Pharaoh's Gift. On the other side of the table, it's John Rolf from MetaGame Guru's Moon on the other end of the spectrum, playing Ramunap red. The players are seated and ready. Let's head down for the first semifinal match. Welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we're ready for semifinal number one. Down in the feature match area, our players are all set for this best of 5 here on Pro Tour Sunday. First player, Pascal Maynard. He plays for Team Massdrop West. He's on blue-white God-Pharaoh's Gift. The other side of the table is John Rolf from Team MetaGame Guru's Moon. He's on Ramunap red. Luis, these decks, kind of a cool matchup. Ramunap red, most of our viewers will be pretty familiar with it. What about the blue-white God-Pharaoh's Gift deck?
This is an interesting take on God-Pharaoh's Gift because you're not seeing any copies of Gate to the Afterlife. And actually, I was kind of talking to Pascal over lunch, and he said he had opponents who would not attack him because they're like, well, you have 5 creatures in your graveyard, I better not attack into your creatures.
Oh.
He's not even playing that card, which is a frequently seen card in conjunction with God-Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah, I admit I was guilty of counting creatures in graveyards back on Friday when we watched Pascal play as well, before Simon gently corrected me that I did not need to do that anymore. Quick start here for John Rolf. As you might expect, it's an Earthshaker Kenra with haste, and it is going to get in for 2 damage, though a very good opener here for Pascal Maynard. As you can see, he's got Minister of Inquiries followed up by Search for Azcanta. Getting those cards in the graveyard so critical.
Yeah, this is a start where Pascal can find Azcanta on turn 3. He gets to use Minister, go to 6 cards, and then if he turns down the card from Search, then he gets to flip it immediately. You could actually, I've never seen Search accelerate you from 2 to 4 mana
yes.
in such a manner.
And we are in his upkeep here, correct? Yeah, we are. So there's a trigger from Search.
So it looks like he's not interested in flipping it this turn.
Right, because that is part of this this trigger resolving. So he won't be able to do it. He's going to put Ipnu Rivulet in the graveyard. And as you can see, he's left up his Minister of Inquiries.
So what Pascal is trying to do with this deck is pretty single-minded. You see a ton of 4-ofs. You see a lot of cards that are on theme. You see cards like Sacred Cat, which are not individually powerful but have good synergies. He's trying to get a God-Pharaoh's Gift into the graveyard and cast Refurbish in order to bring it into play, and then continue reanimating creatures like Sacred Cat or Angel of Invention or Champion of Wits in order to gain a bunch of life, put a bunch of tokens on the battlefield, and just overwhelm the opponent card advantage.
Yeah, you can see he's got other ways to dump cards in the yard here. Chart a course, gets him the things he needs, and boom, there's that God-Pharaoh's Gift hitting the graveyard here, and the Sacred Cat, so he's really just going off here.
Yeah, and you can see that he could have played Chart a Course with Raid, but in fact, likely will elect not to the vast majority of cases, because he wants to discard a card like God-Pharaoh's Gift.
So next turn, it could be on the battlefield if Pascal has in his hand a land and a Refurbish.
And luckily for Pascal, Search for Azcanta even provides the land. So he's able to get ahead of John Rolf by figuring out a way to get God-Pharaoh's Gift into play with, Angel of Invention already in the graveyard.
This deck is really sweet. Also, it's highly interested in putting out what we've been calling speed bumps. By the way, there's an Angel of Invention in that pile for Pascal as he went for the block and then activate, trading off that Minister of Inquiries for an Earthshaker Kenra.
And what this game is going to hinge on is what Pascal finds with Search for Azcanta here, because currently he doesn't have access to a Refurbish, and he doesn't have an untapped 5th white source because Irrigated Farmland enters the battlefield tapped. But it looks like he slammed one.
All right, there it is. An untapped land is going to get him really one of the more powerful yet not super often played creatures in Standard. This is Angel of Invention. And in this case, again, speed bumps being the name of the game. Pascal Maynard now attacking with that Sacred Cat that was embalmed and really bolstering his life total while putting out a board that's just difficult for John Rolf to get through.
Yeah, currently Pascal gets to hit in for 2 with that lifelink Sacred Cat, and next turn the second follow-up Angel is going to gain Pascal too much life, put too many cards on the board. I think John Rolf's going to have a very difficult time winning this game.
Yeah, just a pair of Earthshaker Kenras for John.
Can I read this one?
Yep.
John wants to read Azcanta the Sunken Ruin very quickly here just to make sure he knows exactly what's going on.
And it's funny that Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, in blue-black, it serves as the finisher, right? You flip this card and you just keep finding answers and answers. In this deck, it's more almost about the land than it is about the fact that it can search for things, because Pascal has so much to do with his mana and access to so many cards. He's frequently just going to use it to cast Angel of Invention on turn 4, or even just cast God-Pharaoh's Gift on turn 6.
John uses a Lightning Strike to kill an Angel of Invention, but Pascal untaps and has another copy of it at the ready, and this board has spiraled completely out of control on John Rolf. He is way behind and really doesn't have the tools to dig back from this type of deficit.
3. Oh.
Sorry.
No, even the Abrade to kill the second Angel is going to put John in a position where he's got to trade
Take
Earthshaker
2,
Kenra for an
you're at
Embalmed
16,
Sacred
I'm at
Cat.
18.
Wow.
I have myself going to 15.
You block the...
Yeah.
Looks
take
like
2.
14.
You took 2 last turn.
I was at 17.
Why? I don't understand. I only attacked you for 2, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh, that. Oh, that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 15.
Yep.
Okay.
And you go to
18.
All right, got it all sorted out there.
Magic the Counting.
It is one of the many skills that you need to be great at this game. Pascal down to 1 card in hand, though it's a cast out, and frankly, his board state still looks fine for keeping the game going a little bit longer, and the longer it goes, the better it gets for him.
And see, even
There's a Hazoret.
normally a Haymaker, right? Hazoret's like the card. And how many games have we seen so far in this tournament where Hazoret attacked and the mono red player lost? It's not very many.
It's very rare.
But here, Hazoret not only is getting hit by all those tokens, also cast out is able to stop Hazoret right in her tracks.
bottom.
And after all that talk about search for Azcanta, flipping into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin and not getting activated, this actually looks like a game where Pascal's going to activate it.
It does look like it, yeah. It is the backup plan for Pascal, but it is a relevant one indeed.
Well, see, here's an interesting spot, because Pascal doesn't actually need to attack to finish this game. Like, a lot of his win conditions involve just overwhelming John so much that it's not incremental damage, it's not a race. There's a good chance that he's going to do exactly what he's doing and not cast out, but use Azcanta in order to gain incremental advantage and just chump with the tokens while Hazoret keeps attacking. See, one way you could have played it was cast out Hazoret, attack for 3, or leave up cast out attack for 3 in case when Hazoret comes in again. But I really prefer the more controlling line. He doesn't need to hurry to finish this game. He's at 18. The red deck can't deal that much direct damage.
Well, he found a God-Pharaoh's Gift, which generally is a card he'd prefer to have in the yard, but you can see he's got enough mana to cast it with 2 Angel of Invention. What he'll do is he'll bring that back. He can put the 2 counters on it, and it ends up hitting for 6.
Yeah, look, Pascal has all of his Angels of Invention in the graveyard.
Oh, I saw the 2 on the bottom. There's 2 more. Well,
we're not going to get to that point.
No, we certainly won't. The first one will probably seal the deal. The second one will be the one that actually wins the game for him. But here we go. This is something that tapped out John Rolf just does not have the ability to deal with. And there's Angel of Invention. She's going to be a 4/4 on her own. He can put the counters on it if he wants. Remember, it's also going to get haste.
I'm thinking about what I'm doing with Fabricate.
But you said combat.
I didn't say it. I said combat like as I move to combat to bring back something.
Okay. He said combat is in to put the trigger.
I say combat because I need to move combat to bring back something.
Oh, right.
This comes back, and I'm thinking about Fabricate.
My bad.
All right, we got that all sorted out. And it's just a question of, does he want to play it a little bit safer perhaps and make a couple of servos, or does he want to just get the full amount in the air?
The fact that the token has haste is what makes this difficult, because if it didn't, you just make the tokens. You just make the 2 servos. But giving the creature +2/+2 and attacking for 6 lifelink is very appealing.
So 8. You're at 7. I'm at 24.
Now, this has not gone well for John Rolf. He sits down for his first semifinal match, or excuse me, first semifinal game against Pascal Maynard, and he has found himself scooping up his permanents because Pascal really kind of had his way with him with the
My bad.
early
I'm just used to
interaction
whenever
there.
someone says combat,
Yeah, that's fine.
And he's going to pick up game number 1 over John Rolf. That, of course, is just one of a best of 5 here in semifinal number 1. When we come back, it'll be game number 2. Don't go anywhere.
Grand Prix events offer great experiences for players of all skill levels. These Magic celebrations are headlined by 2-day open tournaments with pro players, feature top artist signings, and host a wide range of side events. Find an upcoming Grand Prix event near you at magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix. Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. Thanks for hanging out with us today on a Pro Tour Sunday. We're in the first semifinal match. Pascal Maynard making quick work of John Rolf in game number 1. The players are not sideboarding for this one. We're playing a best of 5, so they'll be consulting their sideboards after this game. But it does look like deck lists are available, so they are looking at those. Also, you know, this is the first Pro Tour of the season, and we've got the team series in full effect. Of course, these finishes by these players make this subject to change, but coming in, pretty strong finishes by both of these teams. Team Massdrop West was in 5th place, and Metagame Guru's Moon, the one that John Rolf plays for, is in 7th place, and that's of over 30 teams. So
yeah, that's a
properly
very good
high.
start to the team season.
Definitely. And this is what it takes, of course. You know, you need some really strong individual performances, top 8 finishes ideally, and, you know, even better than that. And then you also need a solid base of finishes from your team as well to kind of buoy that. If you have either of those pieces missing, you're not going to be in contention down the stretch. All right, well, we're taking a look at opening hands here in game number 2.
This hand looks very close to perfect, and if John Rolf can draw land in the first, draw step, then the hand would be actually perfect. Just the one lander on the play is always tough. Oh, and he looked. He peeked at the top card. I mean, after mulliganing. Like,
but he mulliganed it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. After mulligan, he had to look to see. I always look. That is. I feel like it's not going to influence my future decisions, and I just need to know.
Luis, you don't have to look. Doesn't change anything. You made your decision based on the information that you had.
Yeah, but I have to know.
I know you do, buddy.
Pascal's keeping a more speculative hand since he has Angel at 5-drop, God-Pharaoh's Gift at 7-drop, but 3 lands, and these other 2 cards are Opt and Strategic Planning. So he actually doesn't know how good his hand is going to be. He gets to cast Opt and Strategic Planning and get some good card selection going. But what he's actually going to be doing over the first couple turns, that's kind of TBD.
It's what?
To be determined.
Oh, all right. So John's going to take a look at his opening 6 once Pascal passes a turn back. A fantastic weekend, of course, for both of our players here. Second top 8 appearance here for Pascal Maynard. He top 8'd Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch, where he played, I can't remember, somebody in the quarterfinals. He didn't end up beating him.
No, I was able to dispatch Pascal in that top 8 in a very close match. We had a good match.
Was Pascal playing Affinity?
He was.
I do remember that. He ended up finishing 7th at that. So, of course, this is, of course, John Wolf's first Pro Tour top 8 in his 4th PT. He's played 4 PTs coming in, so this would be his 5th. Really good start to his career. We heard BDM talking to John's friend who said, you know, John has been able to dedicate a lot more time to Magic after having finished law school recently, and good for him. Congratulations, John, and I'm glad to see that you're doing great at Magic as well now that you've got a little bit more time for it. This is an Opt.
Yeah, and Pascal actually drew Island on turn 1, which was nice because he had no untapped blue source on turn 1. So now his hand's actually developing very nicely because Opt into Strategic Planning, and he hit a God-Pharaoh's Gift. So to go with the refurbish he found. So he's right on track for the turn 4 God-Pharaoh.
So what is he? It's a question of what creature he can get into the yard at this point.
Right, and it does not look immediately like he's got access to a juicy target, which is really what he wants to try to find.
John patiently waiting while Pascal makes his decision. And he's going to go ahead and discard a Glacial Fortress in addition.
Yeah, there was no creatures as an option, I don't believe.
Yeah, this is a place where a Charter Course would have gone well for him.
It's funny that the Ramunap Red deck plays Scavenger Grounds as kind of like the additional Sunscorched Deserts, but they're very relevant in this matchup. Scavenger Grounds able to exile graveyards and make it so Pascal's plan it's a lot harder to manage.
Yeah, speaking of, he also has the Harsh Mentor on the battlefield too. How good is that against Pascal? Anything critical?
He can punish Minister of Inquiries. That's the main thing that it really does. And it's just an aggressive creature that can come out early. But, you know, at 2-mana 2/2, if it pings your opponent for 2 to 4 additional damage, that's a great deal. The red decks are not known for their super high creature quality, so getting this bargain is something they're interested in.
Clean attack here for John. The best Pascal can do is throw the cat in front of Ragavan. Or chump block on the Harsh Mentor. And that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, so I take 2. Yep.
So the net result, as you hear Pascal mention, is that he's going to take 2 damage. And nothing here from John. He knows that this is a critical turn as far as refurbish goes, and it looks like he'd like to just leave up that Scavenger Ground.
And that's one of the edges actually Pascal gets is despite it Scavenger Ground, you know, wreaking havoc on Pascal's plans, John has to leave his mana up if he doesn't want to.
No, well, it's not on the battlefield.
Right.
Yeah, Harsh Mentor does not interact with Embalm in that manner. So John left mana up for Scavenger Ground.
Yeah.
You know, didn't play anything that turn. He has like an on-crop Crasher in his hand, for example. And Pascal just didn't have to make the refurbish play. So that whole turn sequence, that was good for Pascal.
Attacks.
John's going to attack once again with both of his creatures, bringing everybody's favorite legendary monkey onto the battlefield. And once again, Pascal is sitting there with just the 1/1 lifelinker.
And John chose not to use Scavenger Ground in a turn, and is currently, looks like he's not interested in casting his on-crop Crasher this turn either. John is hitting for a good amount of damage, so it's not all bad, certainly, but he is kind of, you know, falling behind in terms of board development because of how the Scavenger Ground and Refurbish are interacting. And this lets Pascal just do some things like what he just did. Tap out for Angel of Invention, not, again, keep the refurbish in hand, and John still has to respect it next turn.
Isn't John supposed to have a bunch of instants in his hand that he can sort of repunish Pascal by being like, oh, lightning strike something, lightning strike you?
He has a braid, so he's going to
Okay.
be casting that. It looks like. Well, he has lightning strike and a braid, but it's still Pascal is getting more of an edge, you know, as these turns pass.
So John deciding to leave a braid in hand in case Pascal ever does get down a God-Pharaoh's gift.
Yeah, but because John doesn't have a ton of mana available right now, he's having trouble developing his board and leaving his instance up. But now, because he drew his 4th land, he's able to leave a braid up and still develop his board by casting Harsh Mentor.
Right. So instead of Scavenger Grounds, a braid is the name of the game here.
Right. Either one works. A braid is, of course, more mana efficient. And drawing that 4th land was key for John.
He also replaced the Harsh Mentor immediately. And there it is, God-Pharaoh's gift. So Pascal's going to say, I'd like to go to combat. And John's going to say, I'd like you to not go to combat. Let's just hang out in your main phase for a short minute. And I'm going to use a braid. Down goes God-Pharaoh's gift. And the only follow-up here for Pascal is just a Minister of Inquiries. And this one is starting to slip away from him as John has really leveraged that Scavenger Grounds and the threat of activating it for a pretty big advantage. He's been able to keep just enough pressure on Pascal's life total. It's got him down to 8.
It looks like John is willing to kind of put the shields down for a turn, but for good reason.
Hazaret the Fervent has arrived, and she's going to get in as they called it earlier, the beige zone here in Albuquerque.
I didn't spend much time there this tournament. So what this is going to allow Pascal to do is resolve a God-Pharaoh's gift. I mean, he's got another Refurbish in hand. So he can chump Hazaret with Sacred Cat here, as he's doing. Minister can prevent 2 damage if he wants. But either way, Pascal knows he's getting a bunch of life back next turn off of the Angel of Invention. Pascal may actually want to chump with Minister instead, because the Sacred Cat has lifelink, and the Angel is going to next turn make it slightly bigger.
Yeah, also the prospect of activating the Minister of Inquiries doesn't look particularly appealing here. He has everything he needs, and he'd have to pay 2 life to do it. So
Yeah, the Harsh Mentor punishing that Minister successfully.
So Pascal did end up blocking with the cat instead. And he finds another one off the top of his library.
That was a great draw. Just anything that affects the board in a game this close is very important. And Sacred Cat really shines in this matchup.
It has looked very good. And, of course, the important part about it here is that it's something he can cast in addition to the Refurbish that he's just played on God-Pharaoh's gift. And there it is. Angel of Invention is going to be a huge swing. That's an attack for 6, knocking Pascal right back up to 10 life and putting John Rolf at 13. And then there's that Sacred Cat that we mentioned a minute ago. And also not forgetting that it is a 2-2. And wow, what a swing. 1 turn. He left that window open for 1 single turn to John Rolf, and he got punished to the maximum.
Yeah, John hoping that, you know, Pascal didn't have a second Refurbish and tapping out of Scavenger Grounds activation for Hazaret. Kind of trumped by God-Pharaoh's gift. You know, Refurbish on God-Pharaoh's gift put a 6/6 lifelinker into play for Pascal. That's also given the rest of his team +1/+1. And even on-crop Crasher's not going to be able to stop Pascal from surviving through this turn.
He will have 2 blockers left over, which is plenty enough. Also, this does have John losing the on-crop Crasher. Yeah, you know, the combination of Pascal's life total skyrocketing back up to 10 and that Sacred Cat just means that John Rolf just is not having damage come through here.
And so currently, Pascal's going to be taking 5, dropping to 5, but gaining 2 off the cat, going back up to 7. There's just no spell that can burn him out from that, which means that the Angel of Invention is going to be able to attack next turn. And the Minister even trades for the on-crop Crasher thanks to Angel of Invention. Pascal's other option is to do something like put the Minister of Inquiries on the Harsh Mentor, which would actually kill the Mentor and leave the Minister alive because the Crasher is exerted for the next turn. But that might be a gamble he doesn't want to take.
4. Take 4. I gained 2 actually here, and this dies.
Okay, so you take 3. 3 total?
Looks like John may have overlooked the static ability on Angel of Inventions, as Pascal corrected him to say, well, actually, I'm gaining 2 and your creature's dying as a result of that block. But again, look at the real problem here. It's Angel of Invention herself going to attack yet again as a 6/6 flying lifelink Vigilance. That is just a nightmare for a mono red deck. Ooh, interesting. So Pascal activated Ipnu Rivulet, and John's like, well, I do have a Harsh Mentor on the battlefield still. So you go down to 5.
Yeah.
You could tell Pascal was like, oh, yeah,
I
okay.
don't think Pascal factored that in.
No.
Activating the Rivulet does give him more selection for God-Pharaoh's gift, but it does come at a cost.
He's going to get back a Sacred Cat. Yes, he could, of course, embalm it, but this makes it a 4/4 with haste. And again, this one has really slipped away from John. It felt like he had a good shot in the early stages, but he left that window open, again, just for a turn to get Hazaret down. And now it's completely slipped away from him.
Yeah. 11 points of lifelink, and then Pascal gets to still play another blocker post-combat.
Hey, look. It's another Sacred Cat, the MVP. A mountain off the top for Rolf, and all he can do is look at his life total pad and say, this is not going to go well, and that is 2 quick games in favor of Pascal Maynard. He's playing what amounts to a combo deck, but it has a lot of game in the way of blocking, and boy, did he get the job done there. He's up 2-0. He's now 1 game away. All right, let's take a look at the sideboards. That was, of course, our second game finishing up. And what that means is that the players are now going to adjust their lists here with their 15-card sideboards. This is Pascal's, and he's got some pretty cool stuff in here. What do you like in the matchup, Luis?
Authority of the Consuls is very good against mono red because it prevents haste by making the creatures your opponent controls enter the battlefield tapped. So cards like On-Crop Crasher, Earthshaker, Kenra, Beaumont Kerr, Hazaret, negates the haste ability, and then gains you 3 or 4 life over the course of the game if you played early enough, and that's just a great card. Pascal's got 1 of those. He's got some number of Fairground Warden and Angel of Sanctions, 7 total, though I doubt he wants that many. He might not even want any Angels, but Fairgrounds Warden can exile a Hazaret. It can exile one of Rolf's other creatures, even though it does die to Lightning Strike and a Braid. And there's Fumigate, but again, that card is a little expensive, and I don't see it really playing out such that Mono Red wants Fumigate, or White Black Blue wants Fumigate against Mono Red, and of course the indestructible Hazaret.
It's just too slow, huh? Let's take a look at the sideboard for John.
John gets some significant upgrades here. A Braid is great against Pascal's deck. Killing God-Pharaoh's gift or any of Pascal's creatures is, of course, awesome.
And that's the full 4 copies.
Yeah, he's got
post-board.
2 in the main. And then Rampaging Ferocidon, which he also has 2 in the main. So now he goes up to 4, and that is just his best card because it prevents life gain. So cards like Sacred Cat and Angel of Invention no longer get lifelink. And then every time a creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon pings the controller for 1. So anytime Pascal puts a Sacred Cat into play, instead of a 1/1 lifelink speed bump, it's a 1/1 that deals Pascal 1 and does not gain life when it gets into combat.
Yeah, and if it's by itself, it doesn't block the Rampaging Ferocidon itself either. So really seems impressive, that card. And he's going to have 4 of those and 4 of Braids. The interesting thing to me is that Pascal is aware of all of this. Can he do anything to restructure his list here to try to play around these cards?
No, he can bring in, again, Fairgrounds Warden, Angel of Sanctions, potentially even Sky Sovereign, but these are temporary and slow answers to Ferocidon. It is more efficient. And then John also has the option to bring in something like Chandra or Glorybringer if he wants to go a little higher, because cards like Earthshaker, Kenner, and Beaumont Curry don't line up all that well against Minister of Inquiries and Sacred Cat, so he might want to increase his curve, which is something you see mono red decks do almost across the board in their matchups.
Yeah. Good stuff. I am curious to see how these players work through this portion. We are, of course, in the first semifinal match here at Pro Tour Ixalan. We're going to be bringing you the second one after the conclusion of this, and that's going to be Seth Manfield versus Sam Eilenfeld. Mardu Vehicles versus Sultai Energy. We've got 1 energy deck left in the field.
So that's the only energy deck that made it out of the quarterfinals.
Kind of interesting. We did have half of the top 8 made up of energy decks, though they were significantly different builds from each other. Which colors you wanted to play, and if you wanted to stretch your mana was, of course, two of the big questions for the energy players here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, when it comes to energy, the main questions you have to answer are, well, first, do you want to be straight up teamer? That's kind of the default. Second is, do you want to splash black for cards like the Scarab God and Vraska Relic Seeker? Or do you want to go even further and just play a deck that has Glint Sieve Siphoner and maybe either, not play red, just play something like Seth played straight up Sultai, or play the 4-color deck that like something like Kenji Samura played that has Glint Sieve Siphoner and Whirler Virtuoso and Harness Lightning, and the green card, just everything. So there's a lot of ways to go. None of that involves white cards, but every other color is represented.
Pascal Maynard, he said in an interview earlier today that he really feels like an edge that he can get is when he gets to practice more. He feels like, one of the skill sets you need to be great at the Pro Tour is to learn a deck relatively quickly. You get a week with it or something like that if you're lucky. But he finds that if he gets to really grind it out and play a lot of matches with it, that he can get really familiar with the list and actually get a pretty big advantage. And he says that it's not super surprising to him that he finds himself in this particular top 8, given that he had gotten on this deck significantly ahead of the Pro Tour and was able to play a lot of matches on Magic Online with it, and he feels really comfortable with the deck now here in Albuquerque. So good stuff from him, and it's a really cool deck too.
Yeah, the God-Pharaoh's Gift deck is pretty neat.
Let's see if John has another perfect opener here.
Well, it's a good hand. John has the no. It doesn't look like any early creatures, but he's got multiple Rampaging Ferocidons. And Pascal did go big. There's Sky Sovereign and Angel of Sanction. So Pascal's hand is 5-drop, 5-drop, 5-drop. Authority of the Consuls and Ministers is early plays, and 2 lands.
Looks good to me.
This is a hand that can go really wrong really fast. Authority does buy you a lot of time.
Yeah. By the way, he's already taken a damage before we even get on the overhead cam, so this could get out of hand.
Yeah, John's hand is very good here. The advantage bar is out of control. It's just reckless. It's just already maxed out on John.
Yeah, and this is really bad for Pascal, as the shock is going to take down his ability to get cards in the yard and his blocker, and this Bomat Courier is going to run rampant.
Correct.
Oh, no. God-Pharaoh's Gift off the top, Luis. That is not what he wanted. 22 mana worth of spells in his hand at this point.
Yeah, that is...
Ugh.
An impressive amount of mana, converted mana cost, and it's not going to go well for Pascal, especially if John has the 3rd land here to play Rampaging Ferocidon and just completely shut down this Authority of the Consuls.
Oh, there it is. So the life gain aspect done for Authority, though it may still keep a few haste creatures at bay temporarily.
And Pascal's missing his land drop.
He didn't hit his land. He drew his Sacred Cat, which we were quite impressed by early, but this gamble of keeping the high mana cost cards in hand from Pascal has really fallen flat, as John Rolf now extending his game plan and putting a lot of pressure on Pascal, whose window is going to close quickly. The good news for Pascal is one of the cards that he did draw in between was a Champion of Wits, and if he could find an untapped land next turn and play it, that could easily dig him to some more action, maybe even try to go for a backup plan of a refurbish on that God-Pharaoh's Gift that he drew last turn.
What trigger? Sorry.
He didn't announce his trigger.
Right, so remember the Rampaging Ferocidon is a trigger that John is responsible for remembering, and it does affect both players.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, so when Pascal plays a creature, if John does not point it out, Pascal doesn't take damage. When John points a creature, he's not actually allowed to miss his own trigger.
That's his trigger that he did not announce.
Right. So yeah, you played the cards and you said you played this one and then this one and did not lose any announce the first one.
Yeah, I played both of these.
Yep. So it will be a warning for a missed trigger. You can put it on the stack if you want.
So I go to take 2.
Yeah.
And you can hear how that works. So it was a warning for a missed trigger for John. As you were describing a second ago, Luis, it's actually optional for Pascal to put that trigger on the stack if he'd like.
Draw
naturally he decided to. Ooh, a land off the top for Pascal. Means that Champion of Wits does hit the battlefield here. Oh, man, but he didn't find any lands with it, and he didn't find a refurbish either. He found just another Sacred Cat and another Angel.
And I think with the Ferocity play, it's going to be hard for any of the cards to get out Pascal out from this, especially as on-card capture. You know, it came in exerted. Authority of the Council shut it down, but it is ready to rumble at this point.
That's right. John draws his card for the turn and surveys a board state that looks pretty advantageous for him. Effectively a vanilla 1-1 sitting on the other side of the field, as well as a 2-1.
And if that weren't enough, John's going to get to draw 4 cards off this Beaumont Courier in just a second here, because he has Abrade as his last card, so he gets to Abrade down like the Champion of Wits, attack with everything, exert, and that actually deals 5, 6, 9 to Pascal, and leaves a Beaumont Courier in play. And he's got Ramunap Ruins and Sunscorched Desert here.
Yeah, so this one fully in hand here for John Rolf. He just needs to simply keep applying pressure with his creatures and then leverage the reach that the deck has in the form of the lands, the Rampaging Ferocidon, that kind of stuff. No, don't be shy, John. Get in there. There you go, buddy. And there's another trigger.
Sure. Where's the...
You can see that he did, in fact, exert this time. I wouldn't be surprised to see him use... Oh, he's going to actually keep a Braid in hand, it looks like.
Yeah, and his plan here is if Pascal wants to block the Beaumont Courier, he just sacrifices it, and if he wants to chump the on-crop Crasher, then John is fine with that too.
Keeping a Braid in hand less important with the Rampaging Ferocidon on the battlefield, as even if Pascal has the perfect scenario where he went land refurbish. Now, we of course know that that's not in the cards for him here, but John doesn't know that. He still wouldn't be able to gain any life.
All right. Take 7.
Wow, John,
Wow.
disciplined, giving up 4 cards off Beaumont Courier. I don't know if I could do that to myself.
He's doing that just to try to keep a Braid in hand?
He feels like he can't lose unless God-Pharaoh's Gift lands, so he's just going to keep a Braid up.
Okay, you know, that does make sense. Look at the board state here. I think he's right. Like, you know, if Pascal were to go land, tap out for refurbish, John just wins. He just goes Abrade, untap, kill you. So you can see where John's coming from, though. Boy, 4 cards. That is a tough
lot
sell.
of cards.
Yep.
John wouldn't actually need to use refurbishment even necessarily. He could just throw Ramunap Ruins at Pascal, or throw the Sunscorched Desert, and then if he draws a land, throw Ramunap Ruins. But he would use a Braid if that situation did come up.
Yep, and that is going to do it. Pascal Maynard scoops up his cards. John Rolf on the board with a game win. So 2 games to 1 in Pascal's favor currently. John, you can smile a little. He didn't look too happy about it, but that was a convincing victory from him there, as a risky keep there for Pascal certainly did not work out for him. Let's take a look at one of the cards that we've seen dominate Standard since it came out, Hazoret the Fervent. This is, of course, in John Rolf's list, and, you know, one of the key cards has been since we've seen it.
Yeah, Hazoret is the most frightening card in the mono-red deck. You know, my entire team played Teamer, and Hazoret was a card that would beat you even in games where everything else went right. Even in games where you started on Magma Spray, Harness Lightning, you know, Rogue Refiner, Warlord Virtuoso, you could just lose games to Hazoret. She is nigh unkillable, and her activated ability means that you're never safe even if she's not attacking, and she can sit back, you know, as it says there, and block Long Tusk Cub, block, you know, any opposing attackers. So Hazoret is very powerful. Kind of funny. This actually is a matchup where John Rolf cited out all 4 Hazorets. So she doesn't have good matchups across the board, but she is, I think, just one of the best cards flat out in Standard.
What do you think she has for toughness? She's indestructible, it's like.
Yeah, -4/-4 effects. I know that Seth Manfield's team has Die Young in their sideboard of their Sultai deck as a way to kill Hazoret.
Yeah, I particularly remember Grasp of Darkness being relevant when that was around. On the other side of the table, of course, if we're talking about marquee cards for these decks, Pascal has built his entire deck around God-Pharaoh's Gift. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but he's going for this straight-up refurbished plan, or, of course, just hard casting. It happens sometimes, too. But this is very much a graveyard-based refurbished style deck around God-Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah, it's one of the few decks that's really interacting with the graveyard. You don't see a lot of decks doing that these days, and this gives you, a powerful ability every turn, getting a 4/4 with haste, and you can kind of, combine creatures that have really good effect when internalized, like Champion of Wits, like Angel of Invention, like Sacred Cat, and get a lot more value than you might think. It's not just a 4/4, it's a 6/6, or, it's a 4/4 lifelink, it's a 4/4 that draws you 4. So God-Pharaoh's Gift is really the card that this entire deck is built around.
Yeah, really impressive, too. This card is super interesting in that when it triggers is very relevant. It triggers at the beginning of combat, which I remember reading that and going, okay, I guess the creature's going to get haste, so that lets me attack with something. But it's so relevant here because it really makes it something that you can do in your first main phase and get the value immediately rather than having to wait till your end step or doing it on your opponent's turn or something like that. And you see that pop up pretty often, in this particular deck, because he has built so strongly around refurbish. Also, man, when that thing gets rolling, it's like the win-moriest card ever, right?
I would say on average, if you have triggered God-Pharaoh's Gift once, you're a big favorite, and if you've triggered it twice, it's very difficult to lose.
Yeah, I spent some time in the feature match area this weekend with the iPad standing behind the players, and, I would watch Pascal. Okay, he got back, an Angel of Invention. Wow, that's really good. It looks like he's going to win this game. And then the next turn, he would do it with the Champion of Wits, draw 5, discard 2, and I'm like, whoa, grab the iPad and start searching for cards because their hand gets completely filled up so quickly. And, they never look back from that point. Can certainly see why Pascal made the choice to play that deck here, though. It has game against mono red, as we've seen already here. Pascal's up 2-1. But, one of the weaknesses of the teamer builds are that the core set of creatures outside of Glorybringer don't have evasion. You can just put a Sacred Cat and soak up all the damage from a huge long tusk cub or from a bristling hydra, and then you can do it again the next turn. And you don't need that many turns before you simply go over the top of them.
Yeah, Pascal would prefer not to play against the Scarab God and Vraska.
Those are problematic.
But he was able to defeat 4-color teamer already, and there's no other teamer decks in the tournament besides Seth's Sultai deck. So there's the only energy deck left. Okay,
we're underway here in game number 4. 2-1 currently for Pascal Maynard. So if Pascal wins this game, he's going to find himself in the finals. I heard him talking earlier about he thought maybe for a while during his career that he might be cursed to stay in the quarterfinals. He had made a bunch of GP top 8s and never got out of the quarters. You dispatched him in his other Pro Tour top 8, also in the quarterfinals, but apparently that is now behind him because he's just a game away from the finals. And we'll see if he can get there. A good start from John Rolf. 1-drop into 2-drop. And there is Champion of Wits now for Maynard. Let's see if he can set up something huge. This is big. Pay close attention to what he discards.
He kept a somewhat land-heavy hand, and as a result, he doesn't have either piece of the combo. He doesn't have Refurbish or God-Pharaoh's Gift. So he's going to show John Rolf that. It's funny because the game plays vastly differently when Pascal discards God-Pharaoh's Gift, even if he has no Refurbish, because then John has to start leaving up mana for a Braid or Scavenger Grounds. When Pascal does something like discard like a land and a Minister here, or whatever he ends up discarding, maybe even 2 lands, then John all of a sudden is like, wow, the coast is clear. I can just keep tapping out.
Pascal planning out the next turn or two to figure out exactly how this board is going to look. He's already facing down 4 power minimum.
I can't hear you.
I need you to play faster, please.
And you hear the judge just nudging Pascal Maynard to play a little bit quicker. We are in untimed rounds here. There's no actual match clock here in the semifinals, but the players are still expected to play at a reasonable pace. And so you'll hear the judges sometimes issue what they call a caution. It doesn't have any actual effect as far as the rules go. A warning does, because you're only allowed so many warnings for the same type of infraction within a match. But a caution is just a little nudge. All right, John Rolf into the red zone. with his 3 creatures.
You're attacking with this?
These, yeah. Take 3.
Yeah, 16.
And Pascal can't wait to trade off for the Soulscar Mage there. He does take 3 from Karizev and Ragavan. And there's that Rampaging Ferocidon. We said that there's 4 of them in the list, and what a great card it is against Pascal, and he has it right here on turn 3, the old 1-2-3 here from John Rolf. Ooh, but here's an answer for it. Now, Fairgrounds Warden, perhaps a little bit fragile. John will have multiple answers in his deck for it.
It's a temporary answer at best.
But again, you know, Pascal's all about speed bumps, right? Slow you down, slow you down, slow you down, and then bang, you take a hit from an Angel of Invention, and you watch the game fall apart in front of your eyes.
And now John really wishes he had a land here because he's got a lot of good plays. On the other hand, he's still going to have a pretty mana-efficient turn here because it's critical that he has that shock. Because if he did not, and he tapped out to, say, Lightning Strike or Braid the Fairgrounds Warden, Pascal could threaten to refurbish off Minister. But now what John can do is he can shock the Minister and attack with his Karizev. He can actually attack first here because if Fairgrounds Warden blocks Ragavan, then shock just finishes off Fairgrounds Warden. Though I think that John is going to want to kill the Minister before it gets activated. Because, again, when Pascal doesn't have any God-Pharaoh's gifts in the graveyard, things go a lot better for him.
John's looking at Hostile Desert. A little bit of tech here from Pascal Maynard. I have seen Hostile Desert both attack and also block for Pascal. His graveyard tends to get filled up, and there's a lot of incidental lands in there.
Basically, what Pascal wanted was a land in his sideboard because he's siding in a bunch of 5-drops, and so he might as well side in a land that does something.
Oh, this is going to work out well for John. He gets to be a little bit more mana efficient and use a shock to kind of trade up for a bigger creature. Yes, Ragavan does get killed there, but as we know,
Ragavan's
he's relentless.
time was all too brief. But
yeah. Oh, well, it looks like John's just going to use shock anyway and just let the Fairgrounds Warden survive. He has time, I suppose.
So John might be valuing the optionality of having a Braid or Lightning Strike up on Pascal's turn. And here we might see a response.
He must respond.
Killing the Fairgrounds Warden in order to get Ferocidon into play.
Yeah, Ferocidon into play accomplishes a nice goal here because if Angel Invention wants to fabricate out 2 1/1s, well, that's going to be 3 damage. And John was clear to say Angel Invention's on the stack. We're not talking about the fabricate trigger here.
How many cards?
2.
So is he going to use one of his 2 Abrades or his Lightning Strike? These are the small decisions that can really add up later on.
Yeah, Lightning Strike goes to the face, Abrade kills God-Pharaoh's gift. But because John has 2 Abrades, I think that's a good tiebreaker.
There we go. Pascal said trigger, and that's the cue for John to say, yes, I would like to announce my trigger as well from Rampaging Ferocidon. So Pascal's going to lose a life. But Pascal's going to still just sort of take his medicine here and make 2 servos. He feels like he's going to need to go wide, doesn't want to expose that Angel of Invention to a removal spell on its own, but it does cost him. He's down to 10.
So John now has, again, multiple 2-mana spells in hand. He drew a Bowmark Curse. He's got a 1-drop, but he would have loved to hit a 4th land so he can kill the Angel and then like Earthshaker counter one of the tokens. As is, I still think things look pretty good for John.
What are the life totals? Yeah, confirm life. Yeah, life totals.
There's a life.
11 to 18.
11 to...
Okay, looks like our graphic was just one off. It's actually Pascal at 11 and John at 17 rather than 18 to 10.
Rampaging Ferocidon takes no prisoners. Ragavan punishes John for a point when he comes into play.
It's true.
So John has removal spells, so if Pascal does something like double block the Ferocidon with those tokens, John can then kill the Angel mid-combat. He's giving up the 2 damage from Ragavan, but he's wiping out of all of Pascal's creatures here.
Now, it must be said that Pascal isn't heartbroken to have an Angel Invention in the graveyard, generally speaking, but right now doesn't have a whole lot going on as far as the combo goes. Champion of Wits, and it looks like another Angel of Invention in hand here for Maynard.
Yeah, Pascal has a lot of action. I mean, he's going to be able to play 5-mana spells 2 turns in a row. That usually is a pretty good sign. But Rampaging Ferocity does so much work. It's just John's best card in this matchup.
Really is. It's shining here as well as Pascal Maynard. He's looking at his block options, and frankly, there's just nothing really great for him. He's just going to go ahead and double block and force the issue here.
So one way to hedge for Pascal could have been... Oh, wow.
Oh, John let that happen? Wow, I thought for sure John was going to kill the Angel of Invention. That would have got both of the servos off the battlefield and left John with a Rampaging Ferocidon. He didn't, though.
That is extremely surprising to me.
I am shocked. Now what is he going to do?
Is John maybe wanting to, you know, leave a Braid or Lightning Strike up? But
Courier go means that Pascal now has a legitimate chance to win this game because the life gain from Angel of Invention is back, and this second Angel of Invention isn't going to punish him to the tune of 3 damage just for fabricating. It looks like Pascal says, well, I've got a little bit of breathing room here. I'm going to go ahead and cast a Champion of Wits.
Okay. Draw 3.
And once again, the window's closing. Leaving that Angel of Invention on the battlefield now lets Pascal draw 3 instead of 2.
yeah, and Pascal didn't have a second Angel in hand. That was a remnant from his earlier hand. So he didn't have the option of slamming the second Angel, but
Okay.
I still... But that decision that John made is going to have some serious implications on the outcome of this game. Like, having a Ferocidon in play and Pascal having an Angel and an additional token in play is just an enormous swing.
Refurbish hits the graveyard. It looks like Pascal's just not on that plan. He's going to, of course, attack with this Angel for 2 with lifelink. And now John's going to kill it. He just waited too long for this. If you're going to kill it anyway, right?
Yeah, that sequence of plays did not work out well for John at all.
Well, I'll tell you who it did work out well for. That's Pascal Maynard, who looked like he had about no way out this game, and we might have been heading right for Game 5. Now he has this window of opportunity where if he can take advantage, he can knock John Rolf out of the tournament and advance to the finals.
Yeah.
And Pascal even got to draw 3 off the champion earlier in that turn because of the Angel. Like
It compounded.
Yeah, the edges are just really adding up for Pascal here.
There's a Sacred Cat coming back now for Maynard.
So John does have Earthshaker Kenra now, so he's going to be able to present a solid attack here, but this game is a lot further out of reach than it would have been, you know, had the Angel died and the Ferocidon lived.
Pascal takes a quick browse of the graveyard here for John Rolf, but he is under attack, or he will be shortly. John's taking a quick read of the hostile desert, though it won't be relevant for this combat.
It takes 2 to activate, so you need 2 untapped lands in order to make it a good blocker.
It could come in handy later, but not now.
So currently the Sacred Cat is unable to block.
I'll pass to you.
And no attack here for John Rolf. You know, we thought he might have a reasonable attack lined up for this turn, Luis, but it looks like he's decided no go. And we're going to see...
What John is doing is he's trying to play around cards. Like, he's trying to play around sequences of plays like strategic planning into refurbish or, you know, like landing a God-Pharaoh's gift, those things. But as a result, he's losing to the cards Pascal just has on board. And it's something you see fairly frequently. Your inclination is to play around your opponent's game plan, to stop,
Right.
to anticipate their moves and try to counter them. And that's what John is doing. He's like, oh, look, you're a God-Pharaoh's gift deck. I'm going to counter it by leaving mana up for a Braid. The problem is Pascal has all the tools he needs to win if John takes the more passive line, which he did. And here you see, you know, the internalizing of Champion of the Wits, embalming of a Sacred Cat. Like, these aren't big powerhouse plays, but they're enough because John's not making any headway. He's not attacking. He doesn't have any sources of damage in play.
Yeah, these are the types of lines of play that in retrospect become very clear, but in the moment can be much more difficult to navigate when you just don't know what your opponent's going to do, and you think, okay, well, they might refurbish, you know, next turn, and then all of a sudden I'm just going to be dead, so I'm going to play around it. But has not worked out well for John here.
Sure.
So here's Chandra to take down that Champion of Wits that had come back via Eternalize. But as you can see in hand here for Pascal Maynard, things looking pretty good with Angel of Invention at the ready. And this time he actually has one. Once again, no attacks here for Rolf.
Chandra is the kind of card that can bring you back in a game where you're losing, but Pascal just drew 4 cards off of that last champion. And he's just going to have enough ammunition to run over John here with Angel Invention. That Hostile Desert might at some point be getting in there. The multiple copies of Sacred Cat. So it's going to be really hard for John to piece together a win here, especially since his best card is Rampaging Ferocidon, and he's already got one of those down and no others on the horizon.
Now, it is kind of interesting because John does have a couple of sources of damage available that are not attackers with Chandra and then a Ramunap Ruins if he can find a land as well. And Pascal is at a relatively low 8 life total here. So there is some amount of pressure on Pascal to get this thing going.
Pascal feels like it's his game to lose now, but he does feel like he's under a clock. Like, he does feel like he needs to get a move on and start gaining life. More even than attacking John. He just wants to get his life total out so he doesn't get hit by like some flurry of lightning strikes and Ramunap Ruins.
So he's decided with the Fabricate to make the 2 1/1 servos, and Pascal's attacking everything at Chandra.
Yeah, he's going to force John to lose a bunch of creatures in order to keep Chandra alive.
And I'll tell you what this Ramunap red deck does not do well, and that is block. These creatures are small, and they're going to be trades at best here for John.
Except Karizev, she's a fearsome blocker.
Trades are bouncers, yeah, you're right. But Pascal knows that with John Rolf tapped out, that this attack is going to just go well for him either way.
Okay. Damage.
And again, Pascal is completely fine with this scenario as he's moving closer and closer to that seat in the finals. This one was not looking good early, but boy, is it looking good now for Pascal Maynard.
Oh, yeah, I do not believe Pascal can lose this game.
Unlosable, according to Luis. He's got Champion of Wits now. That's going to be draw 3, discard 2. And this one has completely fallen apart on John Rolf. He's down to just carry Zev, and he had to trade off most of his board there to keep Chandra alive for just another turn. And even then, look at the board state that Pascal Maynard has. He's got a 3/2, a 2/2, a 2/2, a 2/1 flying lifelinks, and vigilance. And he's got Rolf down to 17, so he's got a few turns to go before he kills him. Oh, boy, yeah, this one's completely out of hand now. Look at Pascal's hand. Angel of Sanctions in hand. Plus, he has a God-Pharaoh's Gift, and there's another Angel of Invention in the graveyard. Luis, this one's just over.
Completely. Scavenger Ground can stop God-Pharaoh's Gift, but Pascal can win by just attacking with all his creatures over maybe 2 turns.
Sure.
It might not be immediately, but it's still just... There's nothing John can do to burn Pascal out from such a high life total, especially without a burn spell in hand.
Yeah. Pascal stands to gain 4 life this turn on this attack step as well. He also drew a cast out for the turn in case that wasn't enough.
Oh, it was enough. Just to be clear.
Yeah, I think that John's going to agree with you shortly here that he also has had enough. And a great run into the semifinals. Looks like it's poised to come to an end here for John, with Pascal finally getting past that quarterfinal curse, and he has left it firmly behind as he's moments away from being our first finalist here in Albuquerque. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas. We've got the second semifinal match coming up after the conclusion of this one to determine if it's going to be Seth Manfield or Sam Eilenfeld.
I'm still thinking, obviously.
Who's going to be the other finalist. But for now, it's just a matter of going through the motions for one Pascal Maynard from Team Massdrop West. He comes from Canada, and he's just making sure.
Well, he can't kill John in 1 turn. So he wants to say, well, since it's going to take 2 turns, I might as well be a little conservative. No reason to lose to some really weird occurrence involving, like, end of turn, kill your creature, untap, play Hazaret.
He's at Chandra, this at you.
So Pascal's playing it super safe here because he just doesn't have a reason not to.
Right, and you could hear that he's dedicated enough attacks to Chandra that she will die. Though this is key here. There's an Abrade for John Rolf to take down that Angel of Inventions, which does mean that Pascal's only going to gain 1 life in this attack, putting him up to 9, but still 9 seems so high when you're sitting there and you're in John Rolf's seat on 0 cards, no Planeswalker anymore, and just it's just John and Carrie Zev at this point. John took a little bit of damage in that transaction as well, and there's Sacred Cat. Pascal's going to pass a turn back. But at 9 life, there's nothing that John can do.
I'll exile.
He's going to proactively use up his mana here to exile the graveyard of Pascal Maynard using Scavenger Grounds. Let's see what he finds. Any glimmer of hope? No, not at all. It's a sun-scorched desert to put Pascal down to 8. But the truth is that Pascal has what he needs in hand. Angel of Sanctions, attack you for a bunch, and then the next turn he can get the job done.
And Pascal deciding whether he wants to cast out to just get out ahead of this here, but he really doesn't need to. He can. Carrie Zev is a solid blocker. It's more of a mana efficiency thing than anything else. The fact that John has no cards in hand means that it's really Pascal's game. He can win this any number of ways here.
Yeah. He is incentivized, though, to play the Angel of Sanctions still, right?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he does. He might actually, since he drew Irrigated Farmland, cycle it, then eat it with the Hostile Desert.
You're right. That actually does the same thing. It gets him 3 additional damage. That's going to be 9, knocking John down to 5. Pascal's going to go up to 9 himself.
5, 6, 7, 8.
3, 4, 5, excuse me, 8 damage.
6, 9, 10.
So it's going to be 9 to 6, and it's going to be 1 more draw step for John Rolf here at PT Ixalan. And that's going to do it. Good game, he says. Pascal Maynard secures that critical seat in the finals with a sigh of relief as he defeats John Rolf 3 games to 1, and in convincing fashion, I might add as well. That looked, 2 of those games were not particularly competitive, and a little bit of a misstep perhaps by John playing around the wrong things, or it just didn't pan out for him. And we have our first finalist. That's Pascal Maynard. You can see he lets out a big smile, and you hear some of his fans cheering from the crowd as well. So great stuff for our first semifinal. Of course, that means that we have 1 more to go as well before we get all the way to the finals. Our next one coming up, and we're going to be setting this up for you, is Seth Manfield. He's playing Sultai Energy, pretty cool build, including Winding Constrictors in there as well, and he's playing against Sam Eilenfeld, who is one of the only people in the field to do well with Mardu vehicles, and certainly the only one left standing. So, semifinal number 2 coming up, but first, these messages.
Hello, welcome back to the desk. Rich, Paul, Maria, Simon here with you. We're going to head towards semi-final 2. But that was a pretty interesting one. Paul, I'm going to start with you just about that match we've just seen. Pascal Maynard this morning thought he was in pretty reasonable shape to get as far as the final. Here he is as far as the final.
Yeah, he had a pretty convincing win in the top 8. 3-1, you just got to see the deck in action. Super linear, super powerful. And then against the red deck as well, he just continued to pull further and further ahead. That last game, though, was, you know, he actually didn't even have the crazy draw where he got that God-Pharaoh's gift on 4. But I think that game was just proof where the threat of getting that God-Pharaoh's gift in play early forced people to play slightly differently. And that has also, I think, given him a lot of wins throughout the course of this tournament.
Yeah, now God-Pharaoh's gift isn't a deck, yes, people were aware of it, but it isn't a deck that you'd necessarily played a lot against at FNM. Now, these people aren't necessarily playing FNM every week, but is it the kind of deck that pushes you into a different mindset on the opposing side, that you haven't had the iterations over and over and over of, oh, I know exactly what to do against the threat of refurbish with what's in the graveyard, with what life they're on versus what they could get up to, and so on?
Absolutely. I think just when people tested for this tournament, God-Pharaoh's gift wasn't really on top of anybody's radar. And if you're not familiar with how the matchup plays out and like what the chances of them actually having like all the pieces, then you're just thinking, okay, well, I can't let him assemble this combo because if he does, I'm going to lose. So I'm going to always need to keep my mana up, keep my Abrade up to deal with this God-Pharaoh's gift, keep up my scavenger grounds to make sure his graveyard is empty. But you know what? His deck can also play a fair game. He can just start hard casting Angel of Inventions and win the game that way.
Well, Pascal Maynard is through to the final, but why don't we hear from him down on the floor with Brian David Marshall?
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Pascal Maynard. Pascal, no semifinal curse.
Yes, we're up to a new thing.
You've been playing Magic for a long time. You've never gotten this far at this stage before. What does it feel like for a Magic player to be on the cusp of having the title of Pro Tour champion?
That would just be amazing. Worlds is World, as we know now, is one tournament that I've never played, and I would love to play against the best players in the world. I don't think I would do well, but I really want to get there and just get my face smashed. Yeah, like a trophy. I'm already getting plaques, so that's nice. I think just getting to the finals locks me gold, which is pretty nice because I had 0 points coming in. Platinum again would be amazing, obviously. Whatever, there's probably some other things that I'm missing that I'm getting by winning the tournament.
Now, I want to talk to you about something about your God-Pharaoh's gift deck. Watching it play that last game, you never played the God-Pharaoh's gift. It almost seems like you put your opponents in a really difficult situation with the threat of the card, and you have different ways to play. Can you describe that scenario?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because, especially when they have Scavenger's Ground, I feel like it's my advantage because now I just force them to never tap out. And I can control that. And post board, especially with all my creatures and my like Sky Sovereign and whatnot, I can dictate how the pace of the game, and I can scare him out. Like for example, like he shocked a Minister at some point. That Minister wasn't doing anything because I didn't have refurbish, but he doesn't know that. So like that's one of the strengths of the deck is just people playing too much around the combo, which sometimes is right, but you have to pick your spot, and it's just a really hard thing to do. Like, I wouldn't want to be on the other side of the table and trying to choose that.
Speaking of the other side of the table, we see the other bracket going on over here. Seth Manfield with his Sultai energy deck and Sam Allingfeld with the Mardu deck. Do you have a preference about which deck you'd like to face in the finals of a Pro Tour?
I would like to face Sultai more than Mardu, but I would rather not face Seth Manfield in the finals of a Pro Tour.
I mean, the former world champion, 3-time Pro Tour top 8 competitor, of course. All right, Pascal Maynard, good luck. One more match to go here at Pro Tour Ixalan.
Thanks so much, BDM. We have a quote from Pascal after that match, too. I don't normally smile, but today I can't stop. Okay, well, let's take a look at our second semifinal coming up. We've got Sam Allingfeld versus Seth Manfield. Sam, of course, there you see him on your screen. 0 prize winnings, of course, because this is first Pro Tour, first top 8, lifetime pro points 2. There he is. Let's take a look at his deck. Mardu vehicles. Simon, how do you like this deck versus Sultai?
I like it. It's not a bad deck. You do have powerful cards, and you can have very aggressive starts backed up by, for example, Hazard the Fervent. I'm not the biggest fan of Mardu vehicles in this standard format. I think it's one of the aggro decks that has the weakest mana, so the least consistent aggressive starts. So I would say Samuel is a slight underdog in this matchup.
It does seem, though, Simon, like somebody turns up with Mardu vehicles and makes the top 8 or the top 4 or whatever it is at pretty much every tournament. It's one of those decks that sort of sits on the shelf waiting for the moment. It's oh, feels like a Mardu vehicles week, top 8.
Absolutely, and it has benefited from the fact that there have been less abrades than in the past. So these Heart of Karens, these Ether Sphere Harvesters, just don't die as easily.
Okay, well, Sam Eilenfeld is up against Seth Manfield, and one of his teammates on Team Genesis is Brad Nelson, who's about 20 feet that way.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Brad Nelson. Brad, the big story coming into this tournament were the energy decks. 50% of the field, 800 Ether Hubs in the room. There's only one energy deck left. Make the case for Seth Manfield winning this tournament.
Well, Seth could win with any deck. That's no argument. But it is the last energy deck, and I do think that Sultai in a field dominated by Teamer and everyone attacking it is a wonderful choice. So I think he actually has two very good matchups ahead of him, and without any stock Teamer decks left in the field, I think Seth's going to win the tournament.
Now, what made you guys choose? You had so much lead time in this standard format. What makes you guys decide to go Sultai energy instead of Teamer energy for this tournament?
Well, about around last weekend, I identified that the more black a Teamer deck puts into it, the less Chandras and Glorybringers that it'll have, and those are the actual disruptive cards. So once those cards are removed from a lot of the mid-range versions, the Sultai matchup becomes actually favorable for Sultai by a lot. And also all the decks that attack Teamer are just complete dogs to Sultai because they attack from so many angles. Like you saw with the Guillaume match, he didn't have any Fumigates, and we have a bunch of creatures that can kill without attacking.
Okay, and then what's the key to look for? Give me one thing that I should be watching in this semifinal. Like if Seth does this, he's going to be winning this
Well,
game.
if he trusts me and takes those Rogue Refiners out of his deck, then I think he's going to win. It's been a back and forth argument that we've had for about an hour now. I don't think Rogue Refiner is where you want to be with Mardu. They're trying to make the game about aggression. That's a grindy card. I want Seth to be playing with Rishkars, Blossoming Defenses, and Scavengers. Scavenger trading on turn 2 with Scrounger and then Scavenger in it is going to be the way to victory in this matchup.
All right, Brad Nelson, thanks a lot. I'll let you go root for your teammate over on the sidelines.
So he wants him to take out the Rogue Refiner. I thought when it comes to decks, he is the Rogue Refiner. I mean, that's Brad Nelson right there. Paul, let's talk about, come on now, Seth Manfield.
Oh, wait, no, I can't. I just can't. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Right.
Platinum Pro for Seth Manfield, 354 lifetime pro points. He is, of course, a former world champion, 5 Grand Prix titles. And let's take a look at Seth Manfield's deck for you. It is a Sultai energy list. So what is going on with this deck, Paul? It is the last of the energy decks.
Yeah, so this is kind of a hybrid. You had the old black-green Constrictor deck that existed in the past, but now it's decided to add blue to also add the energy package along with it. So you have the Rogue Refiner, which Brad Nelson is telling Seth Manfield to cut, but at the end of the day, for the most part, it's still just a black-green Constrictor deck with a few extra blue cards. You do also have Hostage Taker as kind of the 4-drop threat of choice for the deck.
All right.
All right, thank you, Paul. Well, our players are ready down in the feature match area, so let's head down for semifinal number 2.